Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for being present here today. John couldn't be here, unfortunately, but fortunately for everyone, I'm here to save the day. My name is Nadine, and I would be the host for tonight on the presentation of the feasibility study of the ProNamib Nature Reserve for the reintroduction of the Angolan giraffe. I can't say that term. Yeah. So I would like to introduce Hange, who worked for the ProNamib Nature Reserve as a research coordinator still. Previously worked as a ranger at the NamibRand Nature Reserve. He holds a master's degree in natural resource management from the Namibian University of Science and Technology, an honors degree in environmental biology from UNAM. He conducted this research to study and assess the suitability of the ProNamib for the reintroduction of the Angolan giraffe. Can we have a round of applause for Hange?
Thank you, Nadine. Good evening, everyone. As Nadine has alluded to, I'm the Zazapamue Hange, research coordinator at the ProNamib Nature Reserve. This evening, I'm greatly honored and privileged to be talking to you about a feasibility study of the ProNamib Nature Reserve for the reintroduction of Angolan giraffe. Presentation outline. Just to briefly introduce the topic, the ProNamib Nature Reserve is a private conservation area established during 2021 in southern Namibia, particularly the ProNamib sub-biome and ecotone between the Namakaru and Namib Desert biomes. The reserve originates from previous livestock farms that were fenced to predominantly demarcate a boundary, control access, and limit animal movements. These farms were not only fragmented by the fences, but land was substantially overgrazed and degraded by farming activities. And fences did not only restrict livestock, but also many non-target wildlife species like oryx that require seasonal migration in this arid environment to access suitable forage. In an attempt to cross these confining fences, many wild animals end up being entangled and die in the process, or some escape with severe injuries. Therefore, as a reserve, we have been working to rehabilitate land and rewild these farms. In doing so, we have been breaking down many kilometers. Sorry. As I was saying, we've been working to reverse these livestock farmers' footprints on the environment by breaking down many kilometers of fences, collecting scrap metals and other rubbish from the field and storing in one place, as well as removing alien invasive species such as the castor oil, Datura rocks, Mexican poppy, and excuse me, we have some technical problems here. As I was saying, The alien invasive plants include prosopis species. As part of rewilding, the reserve considered reintroduction of key wildlife species, with Angolan giraffe being first on the list to help restore essential ecosystem functions that have been lost. Now, many of you are probably wondering why giraffe is sitting at the top of the list. But this is because giraffe numbers across Africa have significantly declined just over the past 3 decades. They have lost so much of their historic range that today they are only found in small isolated populations. And in fact, as we speak, giraffes are locally extinct from at least 7 African countries, including Burkina Faso, Mali, Nigeria, and Senegal. All this left the International Union for the Conservation of Nature with no other option than to uplift giraffe conservation status from least concern to vulnerable. While they are vulnerable to extinction, giraffes are very important ecosystem changes. Their hides allow them to feed on browse that cannot be reached by a majority of other species, thereby helping to open up densely vegetated areas. They are important pollinators that feed on plant flowers and carry pollen on their heads over long distances they travel. They also host parasites that feed and survive on their blood, which are ultimately fed upon by birds such as the oxpeckers. Giraffe assist with seed dispersal when they feed on seed pods, and they are important prey species targeted by African lion, and to a lesser extent by spotted hyena, leopard, and cheetah. Therefore, they are an important component of ecosystem that requires special conservation effort. What is the problem? Why was it necessary to conduct this study? Because we as a reserve identified Angolan giraffe as a key wildlife species to be reintroduced. However, with all these farming activities and the ever-changing global climate, we were not sure if the reserve still offered a suitable habitat for establishment of a viable giraffe population. Additionally, very little is known about Angolan giraffe that dwells in southwestern Namib Desert. Therefore, the main aim of this study was to assess the suitability of the ProNamib Nature Reserve for the establishment of a viable Angolan giraffe population. In doing so, the aim was to assess social dynamics of Angolan giraffe population on the neighboring NamibRand Nature Reserve, particularly the population structure, social structure, and behavioral ecology. Secondly, the study aimed to assess the spatial ecology of the Angolan giraffe residing on the NamibRand Nature Reserve, in particular the spatial movement, and compare home and seasonal ranges of giraffes to better understand their spatial use and requirements. And thirdly, the study aimed to compare forage availability between the NamibRand Nature Reserve and ProNamib Nature Reserve, with a specific objective to identify the principal forage species of giraffes on the NamibRand Nature Reserve and compare the diversity, cover, abundance, and biomass of woody plants between the two neighboring reserves. The study was conducted on 2 neighboring reserves, both located in southern Namibia within the ProNamib area. To assess the ecology or to better understand the ecology of Angolan giraffe, the population residing on NamibRand was studied over a period of 13 months. In the field, giraffes were actively searched for and located by driving reserve road tracks and traversing potential habitats with a four-wheel drive vehicle. And opportunistic sightings were provided by field rangers and wardens of the reserve. To assess the population structure, individual identification method was adopted, and each giraffe was identified by its unique coat pattern and other distinctive features such as sex and prominent features such as broken ossicon and so on. An ID sheet of all giraffes was created. Thereafter, the giraffes were classified into 3 age classes: juveniles, sub-adults, and adults. To assess the social structure, all giraffes sighted in a herd were identified, counted, and members of a herd as well as the size were recorded. Social network analysis was used to determine social structure and association patterns. With regards to behavioral ecology, giraffes were followed on a monthly basis. When following giraffe, every individual in a herd was scan sampled and observations of their daily activities was recorded at 5 minute intervals. Every time a giraffe was observed feeding, the plant species was identified and recorded. Those that could not be identified were photographed, or a specimen was collected for later identification with experts. Time budget was determined for each behavioral activity as a percentage of daytime allocated to each activity. To identify principal forage, feeding records of each plant species were expressed as a percentage of the total records. Shapiro-Wilks test was used to test the data for normality, and Kruskal-Wallis test was used to compare activity budgets. To assess the spatial ecology, GPS locations were recorded for every head encountered, and minimum convex polygon in QGIS was used to estimate seasonal and home ranges. Again, Kruskal-Wallis test was used to compare home ranges between giraffes. To evaluate the suitability of the ProNamib Nature Reserve for reintroduction of giraffes, forage availability was quantified on both the ProNamib Nature Reserve and the neighboring NamibRand Nature Reserve, which is inhabited by giraffes. Initially, QGIS was used to stratify rivers, which are giraffe key habitats, and 50 points were randomly selected along rivers within each of the reserve. In the field, the points were located with a GPS device, and a circular plot with 20-meter radius was laid at each of the points. Within each plot, every woody plant was identified to species level, and those that could not be identified on site were photographed and later identified with experts, such as on this Facebook group. Grass cover and fob cover, as well as the cover of each woody species, was estimated within each plot. Live trees were counted. All live trees were counted within each plot, and stem circumference at breast height was measured. A factor of 7.96 was used to upscale the stem numbers from plot level to a hectare level. Basal area was calculated, which was used as a proxy for woody volume and biomass, using the following formula adopted from Hamtenya 2021. The basal area was also upscaled to a hectare using the same expansion factor, and were summed per plot and average for each reserve. Shannon-Weiner diversity index was used to calculate woody species diversity for both reserves. And Wilcoxon rank-sum test was used to compare vegetation cover, basal area, and stem density between the two reserves. During the study period, a total of 13 giraffes were identified on the NamibRand Nature Reserve. The population was dominated by adult giraffes, and the ratio of the sex ratio was near even. This adult-dominated population is similar to populations elsewhere, and it's a sign of a stable population with low fecundity, probably limited by food supply in this arid environment. The balanced sex ratio could have been brought by the management of the founder population, which was kept even. Giraffe head sizes varied from 1 to 10 individuals in a single head, with the most encountered head being singleton bulls. However, the mean head size was 3.8. Giraffe head sizes vary greatly across Africa, with over 100 individuals observed in a single head, and the head sizes are regulated by ecological factors such as food availability and predation risk, as well as social and anthropogenic factors. To a certain extent, size of the area also determines size of giraffe heads. With regards to the social structure, all giraffes were interconnected and associated, except the two bulls that were in northern NamibRand, which were also themselves were associated. Strongest associations were between cows and their dependent calves, as well as sub-adult male and female 3. The subpopulations, the southern subpopulation was further subdivided into two social groups, with each juvenile belonging to the same social group as its mother. Such a high level of connectedness is typical in fusion species, as individuals frequently move between groups. And female giraffes, as well as young adults, are known to be social, gregarious, and actively prefer to socialize. Strong mother-calf bonds are typical, as calves need to be nurtured and protected. It was not understood why there was such a strong relationship between the sub-adult male 5 and the cow, and the female 3, but it is presumed that it's probably her older son, or it's a long-term relationship that comes from nursery groups. Social division amongst giraffes is typical, which indicate multi-level and very flexible social organization. Giraffes on the NamibRand Nature Reserve displayed a wide variety of behaviors, but spend more than half of their daytime feeding themselves, followed by walking, ruminating, and standing as dominant activities. This is typical or is similar to populations elsewhere, as animals need to spend more time feeding themselves to maximize their net energy intake and fitness, especially in arid environments where forage quality is generally lower. Walking is very important to search for food and mating partners, especially where population density is very low and the chances of locating females is reduced. Rumination is linked to feeding, and it's a mechanism used to further extract nutrients from less digestible and fiber-rich forage. When activity budgets were compared between adults and juvenile giraffes, adults spend more time feeding than juveniles, whereas juveniles spend more time resting in the form of lying down and standing. Feeding in browser is known to increase with body mass and size, and juveniles do not need to spend equal time as adult feeding as nursing already plays an important role in satisfying their nutritional requirements. Recumbency is used as an anti-predator strategy because when calves move frequently, they are easier to detect. They are easily detected by predators, so it's used as an anti-predator strategy. And also, with their smaller body sizes, it's very easy for them to lie down and stand up frequently. With regards to giraffe movements, the giraffe movements and distribution was predominantly along riverbeds, and this is typical in arid environments as woody vegetation predominantly grow along rivers in arid environments. Total home ranges varied from 71 to 51 kilometers squared, with both the smallest and largest home ranges being of bulls. However, the home ranges did not vary significantly. Across Africa, giraffe home ranges vary greatly from as little as 3 kilometers square in areas with high rainfall to over 2,000 in the arid northwest Namibia. And males are known to cover larger home ranges in search for receptive females and avoiding rivals. The sub-adult male 4 covered a much larger home range, probably because it avoided the dominant male 2 within their population. The home range estimated for the adult male 3 is probably an underestimate, as this bull was least observed and probably left the reserve in search for females outside the reserve. When home ranges were compared between seasons, the mean home range size was slightly but not significantly larger during the dry seasons. In arid environment where the year-round food sources are confined to only a few habitats, or where animals are restricted by fences, animals repeatedly use the same habitats throughout the year. Therefore, ranges vary only marginally. With regards to forage, giraffe fed on a total of 18 plant species, predominantly woody plants. And the principal food plant was Vachelia areloba, commonly known as camel thorn, which made up the bulk of their diet. Interestingly, Citrallus lanatus or tama melon was consumed in quantities larger than many of the woody plants. Another interesting sighting was them feeding on grass. Giraffe typically include a wide variety of plants in their diet, which they encounter and sample in the larger home ranges they traverse. Camelthorn or Vachelia areoloba was consumed in larger quantities because Bachelia species are known to have high protein, water, and fat content. Therefore, they are highly nutritious. Tsama melon or Citrallus lanatus was also consumed in larger quantities because of its high water content. When comparing forage availability between the two reserves, there was no significant difference in the woody species diversity between the two reserves. Similarly, there was no significant difference in the basal areas of trees between the two reserves, which basically means there was no significant difference in the wood volume or biomass between the two reserves. Also, there was no significant difference in the stem density or tree density between the two reserves. Vegetation cover or woody plant cover was slightly, but not significant, slightly higher for the Namibia Nature Reserve. Therefore, forage availability between the two reserves is similar probably because both of the reserves are within the ProNamib subbiome and are influenced by similar environmental and climatic conditions. To wrap it off, the aims of the study were to assess the social dynamics and spatial ecology of Angolan giraffe on the neighboring NamibRand Nature Reserve, as well as to compare forage availability between the two neighboring reserves. And I conclude that the NamibRand giraffes are highly social, interconnected, and occasionally aggregate in a herd of 10 individuals. Some individuals, such as cows and their dependent calves, are strongly associated, which subdivides the population into smaller communities. Giraffes on the NamibRand Nature Reserve spend most of their daytime feeding themselves and walking between the spacely spaced habitat types or habitat patches. They predominantly feed on Bachelia areoloba or camelthorn because it's highly nutritious and it's widely distributed across the rivers on NamibRand. They predominantly move along riverbeds because that's where their main food plants, the woody plants, predominantly grow. And males travel longer distances in search for receptive females and to avoid rivals. Forage availability between the NamibRand and the ProNamib Nature Reserve is similar because the two reserves are influenced by similar environmental and climatic conditions. Therefore, the ProNamib Nature Reserve is suitable for re-establishment of Angolan giraffe. Based on the results, the key recommendation was for the Angolan giraffe to be reintroduced on the reserve, starting with the founder population of 3 to 4 giraffes to meet their social requirements. I also recommended that every single giraffe fitted with GPS satellite devices to better monitor their movements because it was a challenge to follow them when they in the field. We recommended that a long-term monitoring plan developed to monitor Bachelia areoloba plants because they are heavily browsed by giraffes in that area. These are my references. That said, I would like to thank my supervisors, Prof. Morgan and Dr. Julian, for firstly setting me up with this project, as well as Jackson for their Jackson and Tanya for their unwavering support. I would also like to thank the ProNamib Nature Reserve for fully funding my study, the NamibRand Nature Reserve for allowing me to follow their giraffes and access to the reserve. NAST for technical support, the Giraffe Conservation Foundation, which includes Julian, Dr. Michael Brown, and the Commerce Environmental Education team, who really helped me with field work. I would also not forget to thank the Namibia Scientific Society and News for tonight's opportunity to communicate my findings to the scientists of the country. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Hange. To the House, are there any people who have questions for him?
Hange, you mentioned the recommendations. So in fact, how many giraffes are now on ProNamib? Or is it just a recommendation at this stage?
Is there any other question, or do we just take one for now?
Thank you for the question. Yes, based on my findings, we did go ahead and reintroduce giraffes on the reserve, which is the first group of giraffes came about in 2022 or 2020. I cannot remember precisely, but yes, we do have giraffes on the reserve. And they are really doing very well, because just last year we got a new one added to the population. And currently we are standing at 12 individuals on the reserve. Does that answer your question?
On the NamibRand Nature Reserve, or how much are now on the other side, on the western side, means NamibRand Nature Reserve?
I'm not precisely sure how many giraffes are currently on the NamibRand Nature Reserve, but I left them at 13, and certainly they did give birth, but I'm not sure how many more were added to the population. Yeah.
The giraffes that you introduced, where did they come from? Where were they taken from?
Thank you once again. We introduced two groups of giraffes. The first came from the surroundings of Malta here, a farm called Nomtsas. And the last ones we got them from, again, in southern Namibia, in the surrounding of Kalkrand, at Bitavasa. Yes.
I'm just asking without the microphone. How much do you have to pay for one giraffe?
For that, I think I will have to consult Mari. I'm not quite sure how much one pays for the giraffes. Yes, because they did the negotiations and the payments, so which I was not involved in.
Are there any other questions before we close?
I hope you can hear me. As a student, you recommended GPS tracking devices. Is it something you considered when you started the study?
Thank you. Yes, we did consider, but it had some logistical and financial implications. So I ended up doing it the traditional way of following giraffes just with the vehicle, and looking for them just in the field, which is not so much of a reliable method if you need to really monitor their their habitat use and their home range sizes. Does that answer your question?
I have one question. So these giraffe are being tracked with a GPS unit, right? And so from observations, did you observe any movements, like since they were translocated to the ProNamib Nature Reserve, did any of them, since being translocated, did they ever move off, or did they all stay on the property? Was there any unusual behavior of like maybe trying to find where they came from?
That's a very good question. Yes, many animals upon reintroduction, they usually attempt to go back home where they came from. And yes, we did have some giraffes for the first translocation. A couple of them jumped over the border fence, and we had to head them back. One of them went back exactly at where it was captured, and it remained there. So yes, there are individuals that went back home while others stayed.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Hange. It was a great one. My question is, since you started their diet in NamibRand Nature Reserve, but you still got the giraffes from other areas, did you have any idea of the diet they used to have at the places where you got them before you took them to ProNamib Nature Reserve?
That's a good question. The thing with giraffes is that their diets vary greatly depending on where they are, but there has been overall preference for Vachelia or Senegalia species, formerly known as acacias. So we did not have a precise idea of what they were feeding on and where they were, but because it's areas in close proximity of the reserve, we thought whatever we're eating there should be found here on the reserve also. Or alternatively, because they feed on Vachelia species across their range, and we do have Vachelia species on the reserve, so that's how we thought it was suitable for them to establish themselves on the reserve. Does that answer your question?
I guess you observed your giraffes for some years. Okay, you can tell us for how many years or for how many months. Was there any case where a giraffe was killed, either by leopards, which are around in that area, or by other reasons, maybe wrong nutrition or whatever? So the question, was there ever an event either in NamibRand Nature Reserve or ProNamib that any giraffe was killed?
No, I didn't observe any killed giraffe during the study period. It was 13 months, over a year. Does that answer your question? Good.
Any other questions? Going once.
Yes, as I said, the two nature reserves are in southern Namibia within, I'm getting there, within the Hardap region. So these reserves are about, the ProNamib is about 100 kilometers west of Malta, whereas the other one, I would say it's 130 kilometers from Malta here. Is that precise enough? Yes. Okay. No, it's not open. This one. I'll make sure to edit down next time. Yes, this is NamibRand, the orange one, and this is ProNamib. This was Mr. Timan's farm. This one here. So he knows exactly what I'm talking about. Correct. Good. I think
Okay. Any more inputs, suggestions, recommendations, questions before we close? Going once, going twice. Okay. Okay. So thank you very much, Hange, for the insightful presentation. I think the biggest highlight for me is the countries that don't have giraffes anymore existing in them, like Nigeria and the ones you mentioned. Before we close, as we always do it at the news talks, I just want Nadine to come and gift you something small just to appreciate you for your presentation. Okay, thank you so much, Hange. Thank you to everyone who is currently seated in the room. Thank you for making time. To the familiar faces, to the new faces, thank you so much for showing up today, and I hope we'll be seeing you at every news talk that's yet to come. And from me, Nafimane Hamukoshi, rather Nafimane Mano Hamukoshi, from the Namibia Environment and Wildlife Society, we are closing the talk. Thank you. And don't mind, you can have some beer in the back, and we can also engage and network for now. Thank you very much.